What's up YouTube? Welcome back to the channel for another episode on this 2006 Chevrolet Monte Carlo SS. So it's been quite a while since I've done some content on this project, and I'll give you a little bit of a recap in a minute. But before we get to that, if you enjoy cars just as much as I do, whether it's something old or something new, then consider clicking the subscribe button so you can follow along with everything that goes on here on the channel. Now previously we started off on the inside of the car addressing our airbag issues, starting with the seat belts and the airbag module and getting those ready to be sent off to be repaired. I also replaced the passenger side airbag and we replaced the dash area to make that look nice and new. Today we're going to move underneath the hood and we're going to work on the damaged area of the radiator support. We're going to make a couple pulls and we're going to get this area straightened out so all of our front panels will line up like they should. Back underneath the hood, I'm going to start working on this corner area here, trying to get it out a little further so I can do some work. Two things: one, get the radiator and the radiator fan out, and two, possibly get this kink out right here. Now what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to do some pulling somewhere in this area right here, and to do that I'm going to use a pulling clamp like you see here, and I've got a chain. I'm going to hook it to a tree. You've probably seen me do that in a previous video on another vehicle. And here is our section that we have for the headlight bucket. So I'm probably going to have to end up undoing some spot welds. There's a few here, there's a few here. I'm thinking about keeping this panel connected, but maybe undoing the spot welds here. And it doesn't matter if we damage this panel on the car because we have this replacement and this is what we're going to put in. So I kind of need to weaken this area up around these rails here so I can pull it out. We'll just see how it goes. We might end up having to do some more cutting. So I really don't want to get into sectioning the entire piece in, but I can, and it'll turn out great. But I'm going to start by doing these little minor pulls, and we'll go from there. Now after that little bit of pulling, you can see our radiator support has definitely straightened out. We have our kink out. We're going to have to work that a little bit with the hammer and dolly once we get this fender off. But everything else lines up pretty straight. I made a couple pulls in here and got this piece back out. And it's probably hard to tell, but it's actually pretty close to where it needs to be. Now I know it looks a little nasty down in here where I had to do some pulling, but if you remember, we're going to replace all that, so that's not a big deal. Now that we've got a little bit more room back here, we can concentrate on getting this fan and this radiator out. Now the radiator actually has a couple broken tabs where I guess they got shoved into the block, and that's not good, so we got a replacement radiator. And we do have some broken tabs on the fan, and we're probably going to just plastic weld those and just fix those up because that fan's pretty pricey. So let's get started on getting that radiator out. Man, that radiator fought me hard, but you know, you don't have a lot of room to work with, as you can see there. But I finally got it out, and here it is over here on the ground. You can see the damage. Now the whole side tank right here is busted. This is the tab for the fan that goes over here where my hand's at. And otherwise than that, the fan's in pretty good shape. So we'll probably just plastic weld that back on there and we'll be good to go. And we do have an upper tab like this right here. Over here on this side, this broke off. We'll plastic weld that, and that radiator fan should be fine to use. So I've already got a replacement radiator, but I'm gonna hold off on putting it in there for one reason, and that's because we need to get to the spot welds for this panel here so we can section in our new panel. So I'm gonna leave it out, and to get to the rest of that stuff, we're gonna go ahead and remove this front bumper cover and get all this gnarly looking plastic down there out of the way. That was so much easier than pulling that radiator, and as you can see, the front end of the car is tore down. We have the bumper cover off, we have all that broken plastic gone, and you can see the front crash bar for the first time, and you can see it's in really good shape. So now that we have all this stuff out of the way, we have a lot of room so we can get over here to our spot welds, and we can take those panels out and get that area squared away. And you can see I've got most of this area tore down. I got everything moved out of the way, such as the wiring and the battery, so we can get to those spot welds. And now I'll let you take a look on the inside here. And you can see where the spot welds come up here on the joint. There's like 3 there, and there's 2 across here. We're gonna cut those out, and then we can remove this actual panel here, this section, and then we can work on this section. This is pretty easy to get to. There's like 6 spot welds straight in, and then down here on the bottom I'm gonna have to come across and make a cut so I can section this bottom piece in to the new piece. So we're gonna go ahead and get started and start getting those spot welds drilled. And we have our panels out. Now before I go any further with this, you know, it's got a lot of grease and stuff. I want to clean all this area up, so I'm going to clean all this stuff up before we go any further. But as you can see, everything is removed, and we're going to need to address these spot welds here. We need to cut them down to where they'll be flush, so we'll have something nice to weld to before we get our new panel in. Now as you can see, I've went ahead and cleaned up everything, and everything's nice and dry and grease free, and I've started working on some of these spot weld areas. Now you can see I've already kind of ground them down so they'll be flush, so we'll have a nice surface to weld to when we weld our new panel back in. And up top here you can see I've got most of my spot welds drilled out, and I do have a couple welds to cut here, and then I'm going to make a cut somewhere along in here, I'm not exactly sure, and I'm going to remove this top panel. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to replace this with the replacement panel I had. So this will be nice and straight, but with this top panel off, I can address the bottom side and get it all straightened out to where it needs to be. Now I did take the brace and I did place it on here between these bolts, and it is in the correct spot. So the radiator support on the top here is where it needs to be. Like I said, we're going to make a cut here, go ahead and remove this top part so we can work on the bottom side. With the top layer removed, you can see the bottom panel, and I've already went and hammered it out, dollied it out pretty good, and got it pretty straight. Now what I had to do here, I had to cut a couple relief cuts, because what had happened was this metal had stretched when it went in, and it stretched when I tried to pull it back out. So I needed to make these relief cuts so I could get this piece back to where it needs to be. We'll weld this up and we'll get this prepped. We'll go get our new panel cut, and we'll see if we can get it fitted in and get it ready to weld in. The radiator support repair is going nice and smooth, and in the next episode we will continue that repair where we will weld in our panels and we'll finish up with some nice glossy black paint. So until then, I'd like to say thank you for watching. Be sure to check out all my videos on all my other projects, and if you're not subscribed, be sure to click that subscribe button, click the bell so you'll get the notifications, and you can also follow me on Facebook and Instagram.